Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Earlier this week I shared a video where I talked a little bit about the deschooling process and how important it is for new homeschoolers. So today I thought that I would get a little bit more in depth about the whole deschooling process because I know that it's an enigma to a lot of homeschoolers, and I know that when I first started homeschooling I had never even heard of it. I wish I had. It would have saved me a world of trouble. So anyway, today I'm going to give you Deschooling 101. So I figured that I am going to give you the who, what, when, where, why, and how of deschooling, because I figure that answering all of these questions about deschooling pretty much covers all of the inquiries that I get about what this is all about. So I'm going to start with who should deschool. The people who should deschool are those who are transitioning from a public school or actually even a private school atmosphere into a homeschooling atmosphere. But it's not even just those people. Other people who should deschool are those who are already homeschooling but are doing a bit of a more rigid school-at-home approach and are trying to relax their methods a bit. So deschooling is really important for people like them as well. And I would honestly say that everyone should deschool before they start homeschooling, even if their kids have never been in school. The deschooling process is really, really important, and I'm going to get to why later on. So that answers who. So what is deschooling? Deschooling is simply living every single day as if school didn't exist. So you want to basically think of what you and your kids do on a typical, say, Saturday, or maybe on summer vacation. And unless your kids go to summer school on summer vacation, then that is not what deschooling looks like. But otherwise, what your kids are doing on summer vacation is typically what deschooling is. It is simply your kids and you exploring your interests, just passing the time however you want to. And you're not putting any sort of expectations of education onto anything that's going on. So, that could mean that they're watching TV a lot, and that could also mean that you yourself are kind of vegging out a bit. But if your kids have been in school, especially, this is really, really important. So again, I'm going to say deschooling is just basically living as if school was never a thing in the first place. It's just living your life and going through the day-to-day things, occupying yourself, and just finding things that you find interesting. So we answered the who, the what, when. When you should deschool, I've already kind of answered. When you should deschool is before, I should say typically it's before you've begun the homeschooling journey. But I'm going to say that if you have already started and are finding that you're kind of going back a little bit too much to the schoolish mindset, meaning more of what public education looks like, you're trying to bring that too much into your home, you might want to deschool then as well, because deschooling really helps to break that, which I will get to soon. So when you should do it, typically before you start homeschooling, I would do it as early as possible. But again, if you feel that it's necessary, you can really do this at any point in your homeschool life. So the next question is where? I had to look because I'm already losing place in my questions. Where should I deschool? And really, where you deschool is anywhere, wherever you live your life. It can be at home. You can go to the library, parks, playgrounds, museums, amusement parks, vacations, the beach, the lake, anywhere. Since you live your life doing all of these things, you can deschool in any of those places because, again, deschooling isn't something that you're kind of doing separately from everything else. Deschooling is really just living your life. That's all it is. You're just living your life. So the next question is why? And that now we're getting into the good stuff. The reason that deschooling is so important is because the vast majority of us homeschooling parents and our kids have at some point been in a traditional school setting. So what this means is that we have only had one model of what learning looks like. So when you picture education or school or any words related to that, a lot of people will mention, textbooks, rows of desks, a chalkboard, a teacher lecturing, homework, ringing bells, anything like that. And homeschooling doesn't have to look like that. And the thing is that it's really, really hard for people to realize that. Even people who have been homeschooling for years have trouble getting this out of their minds. But again, education doesn't have to look like that. The problem is that we have been so indoctrinated to believe that this is the only way, that it's really, really hard for us to open our minds and realize that not only is it not the only way, it's not even a good way for kids to learn. And I really think that if you look at, the statistics of our country right now within the education system, I think that proves that. So that's really, really what deschooling is all about. Because what deschooling does for you is it gives you a glimpse into what learning actually looked like before the whole compulsory schooling thing set in. Remember, compulsory schooling has only been a thing for about 150 years. So before compulsory schooling started, most kids were learning at home with their parents, but they weren't sitting in a classroom set aside in their house raising their hands. Maybe they were in one-room schoolhouses, but even those looked nothing like what our public education system looks like today. And I would say a good portion of our private education systems as well. Excuse me. So what these kids did was they learned while living right alongside their parents. They were helping to tend the farm. They were helping to tend the house. They were hunting. They were sewing. And yes, I know that what a lot of you will say is, but times have changed and those things, we don't do those things anymore. But you know what? They're all great skills to have. And I'm not saying that you should go out and teach your daughter how to churn butter unless she wants to. But what I am saying, if my daughter just gave a thumbs up because we actually did that and she liked it. But anyway, what you really do need to do is that even though we might not do those things, there are still skills that we adults do in our everyday living that a lot of kids who are in school are not learning because they are not next to their parents doing it. They're learning how to count money on worksheets instead of just using money to go to the store and buy things. They're learning about frogs in a textbook instead of going to the creek and finding one and observing it. So what they're basically doing is they're learning about everything within four walls, okay? And then what society tries to tell you is that within these four walls, this is real life, because you hear that all the time. Well, when are homeschoolers going to be able to know what it's like to be in the real world? Because to them, the real world somehow is learned within a brick and mortar school building. And it's not true. Public schools are really, they're a simulation of the real world, and they're not even a good one. Actually, now this is kind of an aside, but I just saw on our local news the other day, they mentioned a school district, and they said, oh, school is out for this school district today as they go outside and they do science and they learn outside today. And this made the news. And I'm thinking, homeschoolers go outside all the time to do not just science, but to do everything. And I'm like, this is terrible that they think that this is such a thing, because that's where science is, isn't it? Science is outside of that building. So anyway, that was just my little tidbit about what I read the other day, because I was like, what? Anyway, so yeah, that's really why deschooling is so important, is because you really need to break free of this whole thing where you think that textbooks and grades and report cards and homework and worksheets and all of those things are the only way to learn about school. Not learn about school, to do school. What you really need to remember is that kids have so many different learning styles. Some kids learn best by doing things with their hands. Some kids learn best by listening. Some kids learn best by seeing. And what you really need to do is and also there are those who also really learn best while they're moving around a lot, which is the worst thing when you're in a public school setting, because those are the kids that are quite often medicated so that they can sit still and don't give the teacher a problem. So what you really need to do is take into consideration your kids' learning styles. And deschooling is an excellent way for you to observe your children. see what it is that they're doing, see how they're doing it, and it really gives you a good idea of when you do transition into the actual homeschooling phase, you can take everything that you've learned about your kids and you can incorporate that into your routine. But I really do want to caution you that the one thing you do not want to do when you are deschooling is try not, I know it's hard because I did this too. When you are deschooling, try not to look at what your kids are doing and classifying it into certain subjects. You know, it can be really easy to see your kids outside digging for worms or working in the garden and thinking, oh, well, they're doing science right now. Or if you see them talking to your neighbor about Jamaica, which is where she came from, you might be thinking, oh, they're doing social studies. Or if they're playing a board game, you know, and they have to calculate, you know, numbers and everything, oh, they're doing math. Don't do that, because this is what happened to me. I started doing this, okay, because it was kind of helping me to feel better, to know that even though I might not have been intentionally doing anything with my kids, that they were still learning, because I still had this whole mindset of I need to be giving them things in order for them to be learning. So I was doing this to make myself feel better. But what ended up happening was, since I had not fully escaped the whole traditional schooling ideas, or, you know, what it's supposed to look like, since I hadn't escaped that yet, I was, at some point, I started having trouble realizing what it is that they were doing that actually had some sort of importance. You know, I started boxing everything into subjects. And since I was always really good in school, and I actually really enjoyed school, other than middle school, I didn't like middle school, but I really enjoyed school other than that. And so my problem was that I started seeing what they were doing, and I was thinking, that they're not learning. I can't put that into a subject. And the thing is that you really can put everything into a subject, but you don't want to do that, because it really does, it kind of narrows your view of what natural learning looks like. And that is really, really what you're trying to get a hold of with deschooling. So I hope that explains the why of deschooling to you. So the last thing that we're going to get to is, how do you deschool? And I already really did get into that in the beginning. You simply live your life every single day as if there were no such thing as school. And I'm going to say right now that I didn't mention this under the who, and I should have, so I'm going to say it now. It's not just the parents who need to deschool. It's the students too, or the children, especially the children who have been homeschooled in a strict way or who have been in a traditional school setting. So it's both the parents and the kids. So how do you deschool for a parent? As a parent, you deschool by letting your kids be. That's the first thing. Just let them be. Let them explore their interests. And of course, I'm not saying don't make them do their chores or anything. Of course, you know, live your life with them, but give them room to find themselves. And as for you, this is a great time for you to read up on learning styles. Read up on homeschooling philosophies. Read up on education. I must recommend John Holt and John Taylor Gatto at least once a month, but that's because their books have helped me more than any other. So I really, really suggest that you read some of their books. And take this time to observe your children. See what it is that they're doing. But I don't want you to forget about yourself. Be an example. If there's something that you enjoy, do it. You know, because when your kids see you doing things that you enjoy, they're going to want to do things too that they enjoy. And sometimes they might start liking doing the things that you enjoy. As for kids, same thing. Just let them live their lives, okay? Take them to the park. Take them to the library. Buy lots of art supplies if they like doing that sort of thing. Just try to keep your house stocked with all sorts of interesting things to do. But at this point, do not try to, don't give yourself or your kids any expectations of what has to get done. You have the stuff there, that's good enough. Don't get upset if they don't do the things that you think they're going to do, because this is all part of the deschooling process, okay? That is how you deschool. You just live. So if you have any other questions about the deschooling process, just leave a comment. If you like this video, give a thumbs up, and if you'd like to subscribe, go ahead and press that button. I'd really appreciate it. I hope you have a great day.